Target. Withdrawal Grand Theft Auto 5. This sickening game encourages players to commit sexual violence and kill women. It sounds like a good cause, right? You know, stopping sexual violence against women. But, unfortunately, this petition is actually entirely fabricated. It's a game that encourages players to murder women for entertainment. The incentive is to commit sexual violence against women, then abuse or kill them to proceed, or get health points. Except it's complete bullshit. There's actually no option to commit sexual violence in the game. The you need to rape women to proceed in the game is made up, same with the health points. With Australian classifications, it wouldn't even receive a rating in the first place if there was an option to rape women. This game spreads the idea that certain women exist as scapegoats for male violence. Games like this are grooming yet another generation of boys to tolerate violence against women. Yet another generation. Basically, they're saying that the current generation of gamers are violent against women. Where's the evidence for this? Where's the evidence? As it turns out, there is actually evidence. Yet it's evidence that demonstrates that video games don't cause violence.
A new study indicates that playing violent video games or watching violent movies doesn't necessarily make you a violent person.
Anna, I have a lot of preconceived notions from the 80s, and these last two stories are fucking those up. So I'd like you to throw them out of the show. Smoking weed leads directly to using heroin and fucks with your brain forever, and if you play violent video games, you will kill your best friend. That's what I was taught when I was 17. I would like that to still be true.
Now, the interesting thing is, now that we have studies proving that that's not necessarily the case with marijuana or violent video games, there is still a lot of debate within the scientific community as to whether or not video games or violent movies actually make a person violent. However, this recent study actually kind of discredits all the other studies out there that have made the argument that there is a correlation between violent video games and violent behavior. So let me tell you who the researchers are and exactly what they did. Christopher Ferguson, a psychologist at Stetson University in Florida, carried out two studies into media violence. In the first, his team correlated U.S. homicide rates between 1920 and 2005 with instances of violence depicted in motion pictures. Although there was evidence of a moderate correlation between a rise in screened and real-life violence during the 1950s, this reversed throughout the rest of the century, with instances of screen violence inversely related to homicide rates in the 1990s. So all he's doing here is he's looking at a correlation. And so he's making the argument that, hey, look at this. We have the violent video games, we have the violent movies. You don't see an increase in crime. You don't see that people become more violent. There's no correlation there. There's a slight correlation maybe in the 1950s, but for the rest of the time that we're looking at, you don't see that correlation. So all these other studies that make the argument don't really make sense. All you have to do is look at the data. Now, there's more that I want to read to you guys. In the second study, consumption of violent video games was measured against youth violence rates in the previous 20 years. The study concluded that playing video games coincided with a fall in violent crime perpetrated by those in the 12 to 17 age group. Now look, studies like this are really important, and the reason why I say that is because whenever we have a mass shooting, whenever something violent happens in the country, there is a certain group of people that want to ignore real threats in the country, like, I don't know, the deregulated gun industry or our lack of mental health care in the country, and instead they look at video games and movies as a scapegoat. And let's stop wasting our time, okay? If you are predisposed to being a violent person, sure, maybe video games and violent imagery will somehow trigger your violent behavior. But in this case, if you're a normal human being and you're playing violent video games, you're not going to all of a sudden go outside and shoot people.
So now people can finally stop using video games as a scapegoat, right? That petition actually garnered over 40,000 signatures. The comments section of the petition was full to the brim with hateful comments about gamers. It was even worse when you spoke out against this hateful bigotry. Here's the sort of comments gamers were receiving, where they basically ignore all the facts and call gamers rapists or misogynists. One person even went on my Facebook page to dig up information on me, then posted, "No wonder you only have 5 friends, you cretin." My Facebook page is actually like that, not because I'm a cretin, but because I'm actually part of a minority that gets ostracized from society. Yeah, good call on that one, you piece of shit. Target actually agreed with them and pulled the game even though the petition is fraudulent and sensationalized. Even though they spam the petition on various religious and feminist sites, none of which are their customers. The act of burning a book without even knowing anything about it is just sickening. The language used by these pieces of shit, it was the exact same language used in fascist movements. Not just that, but they branded millions of people as rapists and misogynists just because they moved pixels about a screen. Innocent people. All those pieces of shit that signed the petition are depraved, disgusting monsters. They're inhuman, sick, depraved monsters that just loved shouting, "Burn the witch." Didn't even feel an ounce of guilt over it. They actually celebrated its removal, and then said, let's try and remove it elsewhere.
So, Target has acted. Good on you, Target. But do we need these sorts of games on sale anywhere?
And it's been on sale for the last year, so they've just acted now.
Taken it up. But before Christmas, this is a lucrative time. They could have left it on.
Yeah, but it's also everywhere. I was in a game shop last week and it's there.
Games have been around a long time, but they're just so realistic these days. The graphics are realistic
and hardcore, aren't they? Like they're pretty.
Do they need to go that far?
It does worry me a bit.
As on one of the levels, you have to pick up a prostitute apparently, and then you dump her in an alley and you set fire to her with a flamethrower. That's what the game does. I heard it on the radio this morning.
That's her source as a journalist. The radio. As it turns out, there's no such level to burn a prostitute. When they can't even fact check and verify what they're saying to us, why should we believe anything these bullshit artists say?
Who is playing this stuff?
It's a bit different from Cowboys and Indians.
Yeah,
it's
like play computer games, but that's just gross.
Wonder why kids go overseas and fight and stuff like that.
That's weird.
It's like a real life video game.
What the fuck did he just say?
Wonder why kids go overseas and fight and stuff like that.
That's weird.
It's like a real life video game.
Video games cause gamers to join ISIS? You disgusting fucking muppets. They can't see what the big deal is. All we did was call them rapists and misogynists. They shouldn't be so angry with us. And now, ISIS. Here's one so-called journalist and his personal account of journalism. Don't you think it's a bit rich that a journalist is seeking to keep me to account? I know many wonderful journos and love their friendship. However, the field is not known for its capacity for getting to the truth and avoiding bias. Sound familiar? Yep, that's basically journalism in a nutshell these days. Zero fact-checking, no verifying, and they don't give a shit. This is nothing short of a massive failure. Corrupt little scumbags that have no issue with lying and spreading disinformation or pandering to feminist hate groups.